A couple of years ago, I was living by myself in an apartment building. To give you a little bit of background, I'm a woman and had lived in the apartment for almost a year. It was a pretty decent place, as it was only a few years old and for the most part had no problems. At this particular time, I was working an office job on weekdays, and the office was a fairly large building with a few floors and a parking lot. It was close to the city, but it was kind of on its own plot of land, so it was more private. There was a large parking lot in the front, and then the building and grass around it. It had a small private drive that went up to it. So that's the basic background for the story. It really starts when one day I was at work and I left for the day to go home. I typically parked kind of in the corner, and the parking lot would never be completely full, as people were there at all hours. But when I left, I saw there was a guy sitting at a small table that was a ways off in the grass. I had never seen him before, but I really didn't think much of it. I did recognize or know most of the people around the office because it wasn't that huge and I had been there for a while. There would obviously be some people that I didn't know though, but really I thought nothing of it. However, maybe just a few days later I noticed the guy again, except this time he was sitting in a car that was parked not too far away from mine. Once again, this was when I was leaving. I saw the man look at me and then look away, but I just figured that he worked there now and maybe he was new and that was it. But the next time I saw him is what made me suspicious. I arrived to work early in the morning. I parked in my usual area, and when I got out, I was walking to the building and I noticed the guy. He was sitting in a car that was backed into another spot. However, the split second I made eye contact with him, I saw him duck down really fast and go out of view. I didn't know why he would do that. It was like he was trying to hide. This made me stop and continue to watch him because it was really peculiar. After a few seconds, there was nothing. But then he sat up part of the way, saw me again, and then quickly drove away in his car. It was really suspicious. I went inside to work, and I also realized that it was strange for him to be leaving at this hour. There were not too many people that would work all sorts of different hours like that. If I had seen him when I was leaving before, that meant he would probably work more normal hours, so why would he be leaving now early in the morning? That was another strange thing, and I told myself that I would keep an eye out for him going forward. After that though, I didn't see him for a few days. I was starting to forget about the whole thing. But then one day, I was arriving back home from somewhere at night. As I got up to my floor, I turned a corner and I happened to see someone leaving their apartment. It was the same guy. He lived just down the hall from me, about 3 or 4 apartments down. I knew that it was him. When I saw him, I quickly turned back and went around the corner, and I don't think that he saw me. I heard him walking down the hallway, and I quickly went down the stairs until I figured he was gone. Then I went back to my apartment. I could not believe that the guy was living in my building, and just a few doors down from me. Did he work at my job actually? Or was he stalking me or something? For a few days, I didn't know, and nothing happened. Then I got lucky. Maybe a week later, I was leaving my place one morning, and I heard a door open down the hallway. I looked over, and I saw that it was the same place that one guy lived. My first reaction was to go back inside, but when I looked, I saw that it was not the same guy who was leaving. It was another guy leaving that same apartment. I decided to go ask him who the other guy was. So I walked over and said hi to the guy. I had never seen him before either. But I described the creepy guy to him and asked if he knew who I was talking about. The man said that was his roommate. He told me that he didn't know him that well, but they had been living in the apartment together. However, he told me that his roommate left 3 days ago and he hadn't heard from him or seen him since. He said he hadn't answered any of his texts or calls. I asked him if he knew where the guy worked, and he told me yes, but when he told me the place the guy worked, it was not my company and not anywhere near it. I told the man what happened, and he said that he thought his roommate seemed odd and that he didn't want to live with him anymore. Then we went our separate ways. I never saw either of those guys again. I'm sure someone else moved into that apartment. I still don't know the full story, but it sure seems like that guy was trying to stalk me. This happened years ago when I was younger and more immature. I was driving back home really late at night, something that I did more often back then, a lot more often than I should have. It was kind of a long drive for me that time, as it was probably about an hour and a half to get back home. It was really late at night, but I didn't have anything going on the next day, so that was good, and so I didn't mind it too much. As I drove on the highway, no other cars were really around. I wouldn't say I was in the middle of nowhere, but there wasn't a whole lot going on in that part. When I was driving, I was extremely tired. I had already been tired before I left, but I figured that I could make it back home without falling asleep. However, the more I drove, the more I just wanted to fall asleep. I had no caffeine with me, and I should have had some before driving home, but I didn't. So I found myself in a dangerous spot. I tried to continue, but I was really struggling to keep my eyes open. I knew that I had to stop, so I took the next exit. I told myself that I was just going to find the nearest rest stop or gas station, or really anything. I just wanted a parking lot, and I would sleep in my car for maybe 30 minutes or an hour or whatever, and then I would continue. I just knew that I obviously could not drive home in that state of tiredness. So after getting off the highway, I quickly realized that there was nothing there. I had taken some random exit that didn't even have any businesses at all. Too tired to go back onto the highway, I just drove down this road a ways, maybe a mile, and then pulled over. It was clear that I wouldn't be coming up on any gas stations or any kind of businesses at all. It was just a road that was completely quiet, with just woods and wilderness surrounding it. There wasn't any lighting at all either, other than my headlights and the sky. But there was some space on the side of the road with gravel and rocks, and then there was a few feet of grass before the tree line. So I pulled just off into the gravel and then turned off my car and put my seat back a little bit. Literally, as soon as I did that, I fell asleep. I was that tired. The next thing I remember was waking up with it still being dark out. As soon as I woke up, I heard the sound of someone trying to open the back passenger side door to my car. They were repeatedly trying the handle. I looked back, but saw nothing. I remember I was looking back there for like 5 seconds, but nobody was in sight. As dark as it was, I would have saw someone there. I was very quickly woken up though, and now not tired at all. I figured that this person must have been ducking down, crouched down on the ground, and was trying to open my door. I didn't know why or anything, but I knew that I needed to get out of there. So I quickly fumbled around for my keys, found them, snapped my chair back up, and started the engine. The person was still trying to open the door when I had the engine going, and I put my car into drive and left. I drove down the street a ways. I then realized that I was going the wrong way from the highway, so I turned around and went back past the spot. When I got there though, I didn't see anybody in sight. I soon got back to the highway and drove the rest of the way back home. I was wide awake the entire drive. I arrived back pretty late, but at least I was safe. I still don't know who was trying to get into my car or why. It was one of the craziest moments ever. I never saw who it was. This happened just a few months ago. I used to drive to this local park to go jogging there literally every day. I would not always go at the same time, but I would always make sure that I went. Many times it would be in the dark. I didn't want to be jogging alone in the dark, but with my work schedule, sometimes that was the only time I could go. This park had a trail that looped around the entire place. There was a large open field, a spot with picnic tables and a playground, and then a wooded area. I would parallel park my car on this spot right between the wooded area and where it gets more open. The street that I would park on would always be really quiet. I arrived at the park one night like normal. Typically when I would jog, I would have my workout headphones in and play music on my phone. So on this occasion, I arrived at the park after dark and then set out on the trail to jog. It was a nice and calm night. Nobody else was out, and I was going to jog 2 laps around the entire trail. This would take me maybe 30 minutes or so. So when I was on my second lap, I was jogging through the wooded section of the path and had maybe 5 minutes to go. That's when my music stopped out of nowhere. I wondered why. So I took out my phone while still jogging but slowing down a little bit. I saw that I was getting a phone call, and then I stopped completely. When I looked at the number though, I didn't recognize it. I ignored it and kept jogging. After the call was done ringing, my music went back to playing, and they didn't call again. I continued, and then I was done soon after, and I got back to my car and went home. Whoever had called did not leave any kind of message or anything. I didn't really give the call any more thought after that. But the following night, I was on a similar schedule. I went to the park at not the exact same time, but around probably the same time in general. I once more started jogging and was by myself. Now, when I was in around the same spot at the same time, my phone started ringing again. I could not believe it. To that point, I had forgotten about the phone call the previous day, but this obviously reminded me. I looked, and I couldn't say for sure if I recognized it as the same number as the night before, but it obviously was. I mean, that would just be too much of a coincidence for it not to be. I started to get this creeped out feeling, so I decided to answer the call. I pushed accept and then put the phone up to my ear and said hello. At first, there was nothing on the other end of the line. Then I heard a man's voice. He said, "I'm behind you." And that's all he said. I was standing there on the trail, stopped, and I asked who he was. He didn't answer. Then it clicked to me that maybe he was actually behind me, and I turned around. I didn't see anything though, but it was really dark out. I didn't want to take any chances. I stood there for maybe 10 seconds, then I quickly started sprinting the rest of the way, not jogging, but running as fast as I could. In this time, I didn't hear anything behind me. I still had my headphones in, but they were no longer playing music as I had paused it. I didn't look back because it would slow me down, and if I saw anything, it would really freak me out. I kept going, and what probably would have been 5 minutes of jogging turned into just a couple of minutes of sprinting. Then I ran out to my car in the street and got inside. Once I was finally there, I felt safe again and I locked my doors, and then I looked to the path before leaving. When I looked, I saw this man dressed in all black, including a ski mask, slightly emerge from the woods. He didn't come after me, but was just standing there looking in my direction. I was so creeped out. I quickly drove off and went home. I blocked the number, and I haven't been back to that park since. I recently remembered a really scary thing that happened when I was in high school. I was living at home with my parents, and I believe I was about 16 at the time. So I remember that my parents were gone for the night and I was at home by myself. At probably around 9 o'clock, our dog found me and then ran to the door, indicating that he wanted to go outside. When this happened, one of us would usually put him on his leash and then take him out into the yard. He was a small dog, so he would just do his business and maybe chase a squirrel and then go back inside. Sometimes we would let him roam around a little bit. So I took him outside on this night to the spot where I normally did. Our yard did not have fences, which was the main reason why we would always take him out on a leash. The yard also went right up to this road that was not the typical neighborhood road. It was a little bit busier, mainly during the day obviously, but it was a little bit higher up from our yard and it had a speed limit of like 35, which is kind of fast for a street that you live off of. Plus, it was very narrow. There was like no space at all from the road to the yard, so it was a little weird, but I got used to it. Anyways, I took the dog to the spot in the yard that was kind of off to the side of the house but also in front of it. It was a quiet night by now. After being outside for maybe a minute or so, I saw headlights in the distance and a car then drove past. This was not unusual, but it always felt like cars were really close with how the road was to the yard. My dog still wanted to be outside and he was sniffing stuff and walking around, and I didn't mind being outside for a bit as it was nice out. So maybe a minute later, a car came from the other direction. This wasn't unusual until as it was passing by, I realized that it was the same car from before. Now that was a little strange, but still not the weirdest thing. However, maybe less than a minute after that, the car drove by again, this time a little bit slower. It was really dark out and the windows were somewhat tinted, so I could not see who exactly was driving. However, I didn't recognize the car at all, and it was a new-looking white-colored SUV. After driving by slowly, I saw it go down the street a short ways and then turn into a neighbor's driveway. By now, I kind of had a bad feeling about it. I wasn't sure if this person was just lost or what, but when I saw them starting to back up into a neighbor's driveway, I knew they were going to turn around and come back down the street again. I had enough. I decided to just go back inside. My dog didn't want to go in yet, but I tugged on his leash and we quickly walked back to the house. I got to the door just as the SUV was now starting to drive back towards our house. When I got inside, I watched from the window as it passed by very slow. But then, the car surprisingly turned into our driveway. As much as I had been maybe overly suspicious by going inside, I was now completely shocked to see this. I didn't really think that the car was going to go to our house. At that point, I quickly locked the door and then closed the blinds of it. I went into the living room and thankfully the other windows were covered. But I heard the sound of a car door opening and closing and I got really nervous. However, moments later, I heard the sound of the car driving away. So I was curious and I went over to a window. By the time I moved the blinds enough to see, the car was now gone and I didn't see anyone. So I was thinking and hoping that they left. I had no idea why they turned into our driveway, and I didn't know why I heard the door opening and closing, but I was glad that they were seemingly gone. I was actually starting to feel a little better about this whole thing. But then I heard the sound of a knock on the back door to our house. That sound made me extremely nervous and scared. I didn't dare go back there. Why would somebody be knocking on the back door? I went to the phone and I called my parents. Meanwhile, whoever was there knocked again. I told my parents that somebody was at the back door, and they said not to answer it and they would come home now. They said that I should call the police. So I got off the phone with my parents to call the cops, but at that point, I no longer heard the knocking. It had stopped sometime in the 2 or 3 minute phone call with my parents. The person had knocked maybe a total of 3 or 4 times and then stopped. After not hearing anything now for a few minutes, I hoped once again that they had left. So I carefully made my way over to a back window and looked out. When I did not see anything. Of course, it was very dark out and there was also trees back there and stuff, but it made me feel better now to see that there was no longer somebody at the back door to the house, and I didn't see them anywhere else either. So I decided not to call the cops and just wait for my parents to get home. Things were fine for the next half hour or so. I didn't hear anything. Then my parents arrived back. They entered the house, and they said that when they pulled into the driveway, they saw a man running out of the backyard. When I heard that, it really freaked me out. That meant that whoever had knocked on the back door did not actually leave the yard. They were there the entire time. But when my parents got home, they finally left. My dad went out and looked around, but whoever was there was no longer in sight. They could have gone anywhere though. I still have no idea who was driving the car or who was in the backyard. It must have been 2 people if one of them drove away and the other then went into the backyard. But it was really creepy. This happened to my older sister when she was at college in San Diego. My sister and her friend were playing tennis off campus one night, and her friend decided to leave early to go home. My sister decided to stay a bit longer for whatever reason. Anyways, she packed up and started walking back to her car in the parking garage while chatting on the phone with her then boyfriend, who is now her husband. As she reached her car in the garage, she noticed that she had a flat tire. It was kind of odd considering that it had been fine a couple of hours ago, but nonetheless she wasn't too concerned. Her boyfriend offered to hop in his car and make the 10-minute drive to come by and help her repair it. As she sat there waiting for her boyfriend to show up, a man appeared seemingly out of nowhere and she didn't notice where he had come from. She described him as a younger guy, well-dressed and well-groomed. They struck up a conversation, and after a couple minutes, he asked her if she needed any help fixing the flat. She politely declined and mentioned that her boyfriend was on his way to fix it. The guy said he really wouldn't mind helping her and that it wouldn't take long at all. Seeing how it was late and she wanted to go home, she gave in. As they began to walk to the trunk of the car to get the spare tire and tools, her boyfriend pulled around the corner in his truck. After he arrived, he got out and talked to my sister for a second, and he noticed that the guy who wanted to help was walking down the closest stairwell in a pretty quick hurry. They didn't think much of it at the time and went to the trunk and got the tools and spare tire. But when they got to the trunk, they noticed that it was not latched and was cracked open. They opened the trunk and inside they found multiple ropes, a roll of duct tape, and some zip ties. None of those items belonged to my sister. They immediately called the police and started looking for the guy. The police showed up and talked to my sister, but they never found the guy. I still get chills when walking through parking garages late at night, even though I wasn't even there with my sister that night.